Hello everyone, in this video I'm going to review another interactive tutorial for how to make this stylish tetrahedron. Without further ado, let's get started. I'll load this file and we are ready to start. Okay, so the interesting thing is that SelfCAD has all of these primitives, these shapes, but a tetrahedron is actually not in the list. So sometimes this is where you need to know what shape to modify. And in this case, the simplest way is to use a cylinder. Now, a basic cylinder does not look anything alike, but if you reduce the vertical segments to its minimum, the minimum is 3 because you cannot make any closed shape. Even in 2D, the minimum area needs to have 3 edges in order to be a closed area. And obviously in 3D it needs to be more. So that's the minimum you can do with a cylinder. And once you finalize it, we turn on the wireframe mode, and we're going to see here this makes up actually this top is designed with 3 faces. This is not needed. You'll see later I'll remove it in the top and the bottom also, but that's just the way a cylinder topology structure is designed, so it maintains this structure. And this is another case where a lot of times you choose a difference, for example, between a sphere and isohedron. The things are just based on topology structure. You can modify stuff, so just important to know that. Okay, so now we're going to select this polygon, and despite they have 3 faces, they are considered a single polygon. If I go to face mode, I would have to select each of the 3 separately, but in polygon mode, because they're flat, they're actually a single polygon. And the idea here, what we're going to do is we're going to use a snap tool, but the basic snap tool is not going to help us. The idea here is in the advanced settings, there is an option we turn on called collapse vertices, which basically is going to take all of the vertices. If we count over here what we have a vertex in this edge, and this edge, and in this edge. We have actually 3 vertices, plus actually a 4th one, which is in the center that makes up these faces. So what we're going to do here is we're going to snap it to this point, to the center point, and everything is snapped over here. Now, the idea here is the snap tool is a general tool. You'll see I'm not sure if we can use it later in this tutorial, I think not, but there is other tools which are designed specifically for collapsing and will automatically remove the vertices. This tool has a multi-purpose tool, so it's not going to remove the extra vertices, so you have to go to a utility tool called Geometry Clean, and in the Geometry Clean there's a tool called Remove Duplicates, and if you do this, you see it removed 1 polygon, 3 faces, and 3 vertices. So that's basically what this did, and now the structure is good. We still have this in the bottom. We're going to remove it later, but for now this makes it the structure. So if you're just looking how to make a tetrahedron, you're basically done. We have 13 steps here. It's basically all done, but now it's going to start doing some more editing and turn this into some style, adding some style to it. So the idea here is that we're going to go to cube selection because we want to add a split into the center over here. And the idea here is we want it to be positioned correctly. So the SelfCAD has many options how to add. There are many options how you can actually cut something, but when you want to cut with precision and tie, I think cube selection is probably the best one because it has this option percentage based. So what it's going to do over here, it's going to cut them into 45%. And if we have on the exact selection, then this actually will make a cut. So once we finalize that, we actually added here a separate section, and we're going to deselect this now. We just needed to add this loop. This is a complete loop. Now you can add other tools to do it, but this is the best way to make a complete loop as a cut. So now it's going to go to freehand drawing, and it's going to make some settings over here. So what we're going to do here is, the idea here is we want to draw text on this, but we need to adjust the angle. So it's going to use, whenever you draw on a plane. By default you draw on the floor. And you can choose any of the other set planes, but you can also make a custom plane. And to make a custom plane, what it's doing is you draw over here, it gives you a guide how to draw, and you're basically positioning over here. And now it's going to, if I'm drawing on this plane, this is basically aligned perfectly with this face. So it's going to draw text, and it wants the text to be partially sticking out and partially inside of the shape. So for that, it's going to use an offset of the plane. It's going to offset this by -8. So you can see the plane actually comes forward. Now this offset is often confusing. It's not as easy as other tools in the application because it removed the labels and the stuff. You can't really know where is positive, minus, so where is plus. So in this case this worked, but in case it doesn't, you may need to forget about the offset and later use the move tool has also an option, a custom direction that will allow you to move things at an angle. But for now, this works perfectly fine. And then it's going to set the height. The height would be 10. So this is basically how thick the text would be. So if you think about it, if we have a height of 10 and we have a offset of 8, that means it will be sticking out by 8, and then it will go into the object by 2. It cannot go in too much because then it will start sticking out from the other side, because this is a minimalistic shape that doesn't have too much space to go deep inside without pursing through the other side. So now it's going to type in tetrahedron. I'm just going to click next, save some time. Okay. And now it's going to draw text. So this is what this line was used for. It's just a visual aid to know where to draw. So we're not drawing actually on the line. We're drawing on the plane we created, which is actually at a far distance from the line. But we're going to click here and simply as a visualization to follow this. Now we're going to click to finalize, and basically the text is already positioned. So this is basically it. So now it's going to use turn off the polygon mode, and it's going to go to the color, simply give a color for the text to do something like this. And it's also going to remove the wireframe, make it look a little nicer, better to visualize. These are all just visualizations, so you basically have the text over here. Now it's going to select both of them, and actually not, first deselect this, and it's going to go to the resolution. Okay, so this is actually what's going to do over here is it's trying to remove the lines we just created and also remove this that is not needed. This is just an extra step, basically just teaching how this is done. It's not really necessary as part of design. But what we're going to do here is a tool called resolution. And resolution, normally if you use to it, is the idea to add resolution, like to make more lines, but it can also be used to reduce. If you make it to 0, it will rebuild everything to its minimum structure. And in this case, it removed all of this entire loop that we added, plus it removed it over here. At this point, actually, before we make the cut, this text is still a separate object. At this point, if you think about it, we have one triangle at the bottom, and then 1, 2, 3 triangles that makes up. So we have actually a total of 4 triangles. And this is the smallest minimalistic shape that you can have in 3D that has a volume. When I say 3D, I mean, I'm not talking about measurement 3D. You can have a single face that you can measure at an XYZ position. That's not the point when you're talking about 3D. I'm talking about something that has a volume. And the same thing, that an area must be a minimum of 3 edges. A volume must be a minimum of 4 faces, or 4 polygons faces. Otherwise, it cannot contain a volume. So this is now the smallest shape that you can have. Now we're going to take both of these, and we're going to use stitch and scoop and removing the drawing, cutting it out, and that's basically it. So now it's turning it on to this mode, so it's nicer to see. And obviously now you have a lot more faces, so it's already built in more. So now we're going to go here and select these edges again, just for adding style. We're adding these side edges. Now this is actually why removing the loop was helpful, because despite we cut out, it still maintained these long edges. Otherwise you would have needed to select part 1 of each edge, part 2, because we had this loop removed. We had added this loop, but now we still maintain these nice edges, and it's simply going to copy these edges. So now in SelfCAD you can make drawings using the drawing tools, but you can also copy from others and things like that, and it's created a profile. You can see it automatically named it. You can rename it, but the name by default was created profile 1, and this is basically the same way as you would have drawn this. And now it's going to basically turn off the drawing mode, and it's going to make a new shape now, a small sphere with a value of 2. Now if you think about it, a value of 2 is, this is radius. A radius of 2 is the same as size. If you're going to go to the size scale, this will be a size of 4. So if we finalize this, what it's going to go here is also to the snap tool, and it's going simply to position it over here onto this top over here, and this is basically the bottom of the sphere is snapping on top of it. But if you know the size of this is 4, and if you wanted to position it in the center, all we need to do is make it a -2. So now it's positioned, the center of the sphere is on top of this, and we close it. Now the reason we did this is sometimes you have to think about the order. You could have done the next steps first, like we copy these edges and first do something with it, but it's much easier to snap to a single point than later. Once we're going to have a geometry here, it's going to be much more difficult to find the correct point. So that's why it's done in this order. So now it's going to draw a simple circle, which I have to find a place where it asks me to draw it. Oh, actually first I have to deselect. Deselecting the sphere, and now it gives me a point where to draw it. It doesn't really matter where, because it's going to be simply typed in a value of 1, a simple tiny circle with a size of 1, and you can barely see it if you zoom in. Circle we created, and now we're going to use a new tool that's called follow path. So the way follow path works, you first have to select the thing that you're going to use, in this case a small circle, and then you're choosing what it should follow, and the selection order matters. If you would select the otherwise around, first this tripod kind of shape, and then the circle, it will try to use this shape to follow the circle. So that's not what we want, obviously. We want the circle to follow this. So you first select what should follow, and then the object that should be following, and then which profile it should follow. So now once we have corrected them correctly, we can go to the follow path. And this follow path is also a multi-purpose tool, has a lot of stuff. We're going to use the extrude option and basically just finalize it. We're just going to extrude that, and that's it. So what happened over here is we already created all of these things together, but it created them as separate profiles, as separate objects. Each of these lines are separate objects. So we have now 3 lines plus the sphere that we manually created. Now we needed to create this sphere on top for 2 reasons. First of all, you know, it's nicer, it looks nice. But second thing is, when these lines converge on top, these small cylinders that created these pipes, these tubes, converge on top, they do not make a nice seam. You need to stitch it up. And the easiest way to stitch it up is just to put the sphere on it. So now we're going to select all of these 4 pieces, and we're simply going to use the Boolean union. Stitch and scoop, which is also called Boolean operations, and a union option. And it combined that all, and now we're going to use color, just because we love colors. And now what we're going to do is we're going to select the shape we just created, the union. You can see how SelfCAD always renames it based on the tool that was created. So this was created with a union, and now this was created using a difference after we cut out the tetrahedron text. So we're selecting both of them, and we're going to make a new union. And you can imagine we can have a new object that is called Union 2, because we already had the Union 1. And you can always rename, but this is just a visual aid and how SelfCAD creates stuff. Now what we're going to do here is we're going to simply inverse select and click delete, so we can get rid of everything we don't need. And we are done. So this is basically how this was created. Okay, thanks for watching. I hope this was helpful. And let me know in the comments if you want me to show anything else, and if you have any other questions. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.